Now, I'm not saying that you can save your way to being wealthy, but by making a smaller investment in a budget gaming monitor, this may free up some of that cash for other helpful purchases in your gaming endeavor. What is up, you beautiful humans? I hope you are all doing well, and I feel like I'm experiencing the sunk cost fallacy here because I have been testing this monitor for quite a while now, and on top of that, I'm getting all of this test footage, and part of me was thinking about you and whether this is something that you're actually interested in. But I just said, you know what? We are just full steam ahead because I need to test out these budget options for the community because not everyone is willing to cash out their 401k for a display. And really, you shouldn't. Please don't. Now, I really try to shine a spotlight on some of these brands that aren't really well known, but I do think that many of them are doing a pretty decent job with their lineups, and I've been using quite a few of them for years and really without any issue. But from the jump, I do need to let you know that this brand did not send me this monitor. They do not know that I even have it or that I'm reviewing it, but I did get this at no cost, and there's really no expectation to make this video. I really just decided to do this on my own, and quite frankly, I am pretty deep into this thing, so this is all on me. And for some of you, it might be the case that your heart is really saying 1440p at a minimum, 4K would be a dream, but your wallet may be saying it only has enough for 1080p. And I know that many recommend around a 24-inch display at that resolution. And if you had been thinking about a 300 hertz refresh rate as really being outside of the realm of possibility, this 27-inch curved 1080p display from Z Edge may just be a good start on your new gaming journey. And I personally really like curved displays, and I've enjoyed running this thing through some paces with a couple of Xbox consoles, a PC with an RTX 3060 graphics card, and yes, I did some very brief gaming on a MacBook Pro and some general use case scenarios with a MacBook Air, because I always like to see how these perform because, you know, these Macs, they don't often play very well with some of these monitors. And also keep in mind that you and I, well, like really, we have our games that we're familiar with. And some of my testing, especially with Overwatch 2 and Rainbow Six Siege, was more of an all-in approach as I am a complete noob at these games, but I really like Overwatch 2 because it is so optimized, so much so that you can really play it on just about any rig. And I did try to make some of the adjustments to get at least like close to the 300 frames per second. And I know that you can get this game to twice that with tweaking the settings, and of course, depending on the graphics card that you're using. But the Z Edge UG27S is a great example of how budget gaming monitors are making high refresh rate gaming more accessible. And I want to give you a breakdown of the highlights and some of the lowlights to consider, especially when compared to pricier alternatives. And getting into the pros of a budget gaming monitor, hence the name, affordability. This is the big one. Monitors like this one from Z Edge make 300 hertz gaming much more attainable for gamers who don't want to break the bank. Now, whether this is just something for you to have bragging rights or you truly want or need this, it does become more attainable at this price point. Now, of course, there are fast response times and high refresh rates, so budget monitors often prioritize speed, but these were previously exclusive to premium brands. And I have to admit, I usually haven't noticed much above, let's say, like 165 hertz refresh rate monitors. Like really, it was like 120 for me because it all just kind of started to look the same. But with this particular display, I did appreciate what I was seeing, and I think I just needed to spend some time with it. And I did in fact spend a lot of time with this display. And just as a heads up, as far as the refresh rate's concerned, HDMI 2.0, it is 240 hertz. And it is the DisplayPort connectivity where that extra throughput really gets you to that 300 hertz. And the DisplayPort cable is included, which I have also mentioned before, many videos before, that if you are purchasing cables for your setup, just make sure that you are getting those cables that can handle the throughput that you really need. They don't have to be the most expensive, but just know that the quality may be a little bit better. Like when you're looking, a slightly higher investment here in the long run may be the way to go. But also keep in mind that I am filming some of this footage between 60 and 120 frames per second, and then throwing it in a 24 frame timeline. So you'll really just have to take my word and the word of others that have reviewed this particular display. It's quite responsive. Now, as far as the image quality, while it's really not top tier, but budget monitors, generally speaking, provide acceptable image quality for most gamers. I did compare this to an Alienware display that has a refresh rate of 265 Hertz, and I'll add a little bit more detail here when I get to that talking point about the panel. But if you really want to jump off the ride here, then I will give you my recommendation that this display is a good choice for casual gamers or those that are just really new to PC gaming. It really is a great point of entry, and I think you'll have a great experience, smoother gameplay without a huge investment. So let me get into some of the areas where I want to make sure that you know what you're getting into when it comes to a budget gaming monitor, and some of this being this particular monitor. And as far as panel quality, budget monitors often use TN or VA panels, and even though this is not listed, I did reach out via chat on their website and I got a response pretty quickly and verified that these curved displays are using VA panels. I actually have other curved displays with these panels and I found them to be really just fine and even offer some color vibrancy. But while they do offer fast response times, they can have limitations in viewing angles and color accuracy when comparing it to IPS panels found in pricier monitors. So jumping back over to that Alienware I was comparing it to, there is a noticeable difference side by side, especially with the color accuracy, but this monitor is also twice the price of the Z-Edge offering. Now, viewing this at a slight angle or off center is gonna be fine, but you will start to notice as you drift further off to the side that those colors are gonna get a little bit more washed out. So keep it as much to the center as you can when you're viewing. And of course, color accuracy in gamut, this isn't a monitor that I would be color grading with. It does have a stunning picture, yes, but don't expect professional grade color accuracy. It is an 8-bit color depth. However, the HDR10 does really pop off the display, and I enjoyed watching a few of the shows that I kind of follow and other media that I was really testing. And again, I think that this was fine for consuming content. I really didn't see it as an issue. Also, when it comes to general use case, such as surfing or even typing, I did test this with both the PC and a couple of my Mac computers, and although there weren't any issues with it waking up from sleep on the Mac as some displays do, I really wouldn't recommend this for a non-gaming use case. Media consumption, it was fine, but when looking at text, especially for like long periods of time, you will really see the absence of that pixel density, and I personally experienced some eye strain when working on documents. So take that as you will. However, I will say that the brightness of this display was really great because I was playing Resident Evil Village and that game is just dark, and I appreciated having a bit more illumination with this particular monitor. And some of this just comes from being able to pick some of the default picture profiles in the menu. Now, as far as the build quality, this thing is light and not what you'd appreciate as far as having what I would say a premium feel. The menu buttons are pretty standard and you do get used to working through the menu, but I really do appreciate having those toggle buttons on those other monitors that I've used, especially when you need to adjust between gaming, movies, or general tasks. And I will say that I also like the bezel-less design that we often see on higher end offerings, although we're starting to see it more on the budget. So I really will chalk that up as a win here. And some of the limiting features that you might get used to with budget monitors, like I said, this does have HDR support. It has a very fast response time and FreeSync to boot, but there is a lack of built-in speakers, although I have recommended a separate speaker setup because those built-ins usually in pretty much any display are often very thin on the sound. And I know it's really nice to have, especially if you don't have speakers or headphones just to get you started. However, I will say that it easily pushed the audio to my DT770 Pros. These are reference headphones, not something that you would use for gaming or really like a lot of consumption. It's mostly for audio editing. And those do require a little extra power to push that audio, and the display did it without any issues. But when it comes to the ergonomics of the included stand, just as you might expect, as soon as you can, I would recommend, it does have the VESA mount capability. Please make that small investment to get a VESA mounted stand to your desk, because this is actually one of the areas where the included one has very limited options. So I will leave you with this, that I always recommend doing your own research, especially when it comes down to your particular setup. And this isn't so much about the gaming rigs, although yes, make sure that what you have under the hood can take advantage of the display. But as I've mentioned before, if you want to use this with a Mac, I mean, cautiously, Just keep in mind that macOS has an interesting way of functioning with certain monitors, and with a vast sea of choices out there, your experience will vary. So, as always, my friends, I cannot thank you enough for your time here. You go out there and rock those faces, and I hope to see you right back here on the next one.